Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about the 5 books that I read in August. I think it was only 5. Oh, I forgot about that one. Right, okay, yes. So I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. Okay, correction, yes, I did actually read 6 books in August. And I'm just going to quickly go through all of those. 5 of them were all historical fiction, and then 1 was a classic. The first book that I finished was When Tomorrow Comes by Janette Oak. There we go. This is the 6th and final book of the Canadian West series, and this one is my least favorite of all of the series. It honestly, I think I rated it 4 stars. Because I loved Henry's story in it. So Henry, it follows Henry and Christine, yes, the 2 children that Wynne and Elizabeth had adopted. I loved Henry's story and the romance with him and, shoot, I can't remember her name. They call her Sam, but I think, I can't remember her actual, Amber. Amber is her actual name. But yeah, I loved Henry and Amber's story. So sweet, adored it. But Christine, the book before this one, Christine was in a relationship with a man who was not a believer, and like the whole entire book, it was like she knew that she probably shouldn't be in this relationship, but she continued to stay in it because she kept thinking that if she kept praying hard enough and trying to like be a witness to him, he would change and all of that. But it just didn't, obviously it just didn't really work out because the guy was, I don't know, red flags all around. Then in this one, Christine is, you know, trying to find another job, trying to recuperate because she actually did fall in love with that guy. But she meets 3 different guys in this book, all really good guys, all of them believers, and it's just kind of her journey of being willing to love someone again, wanting to make the right decision, wanting to make the right choice. And she's also really longing to go back to the north where she would have grown up because she really loves it. But it's just also, yeah, her whole thing of wanting to follow God's will this time instead of making her own selfish decisions and things like that. And I totally get what Janette Oak was trying to, you know, I understand the message and I understand what she was trying to do with Christine's story. But I did not like the guy she ended up with. I liked him, he was a nice guy, but there was, in my opinion, a much better choice. They fit together so well, and the way that Christine decided to go with the guy she ended up with, I was like, okay, cool, great. And I understand, I don't know how to talk about it without giving spoilers. He was a good guy, but there was just, I don't know, there was another guy that I just thought would have been much better. And we're just gonna leave it at that. It was just kind of a disappointing end to the series because I enjoyed the rest of the series so much. But anyway, there's that one. Moving on. Okay, the next book that I read then was Until We Find Home by Cathy Gohlke. I read it on Kindle, borrowed it from the library. So this one, we follow an American, Claire Stewart. She joined the French resistance during World War II, rescuing the Jewish children in France, Paris. And some little mix-up of taking the children to the coast to get them across the channel to England. She went with the children, not really by her own choice. Just, it was a whole circumstance, you know. She ended up in England with the 5 children, and she didn't have any contacts, or she couldn't find her contact in England. She just ends up in England with these 5 children, and she doesn't have any idea what she's supposed to be doing with them. The description says, I'll read it here, it's much it explains it a lot better. She throws herself on the mercy of an estranged aunt, begging Lady Miranda Langford to take the children into her magnificent estate. Heavily weighted with grief of her own, Miranda reluctantly agrees if Claire will stay to help. So, there we go. Claire ends up at this estate with her aunt and is planning on taking care of all of these children, these 5 children. Claire is in love with a man who is in France, but she's not really sure what the relationship, where the relationship stands, but she is still in love with him. So yes, there is romance in this book, but she also meets a fellow American who is in England working for the war effort, and he lives at the estate as well. And so, you know, they're getting to know each other there. And the book is set in the Lake District of England, and so this is where a lot of writers lived and found their inspiration, like Beatrix Potter. There are a lot of references to The Secret Garden, and then also C.S. Lewis, because it was kind of based off of C.S. Lewis's, or some inspiration was pulled from C.S. Lewis's radio broadcast during the war. I really loved all of the literary references, and Beatrix Potter actually does show up in the book as well, which was fun. And yeah, so there are a lot of, like I said, literary references that I really loved. Claire and her aunt Miranda both kind of had hard or difficult childhoods and a lot of loss and grief, and I feel like most of the books that I've read by Cathy Gohlke now have that element of it, where the characters have had some, like, either a hard past or they lost someone, and so they have those things to work through in the story, and which I really appreciate it. I think she handles those topics pretty well. But I don't know, something about this one, this time Claire, she kind of got on my nerves a little bit. She just kept, and I understand, I don't know what I would do in that situation if I would have been stranded in a different country with 5 children that I wasn't planning on taking care of, and the man I loved is over in another country and I'm not hearing from him. I don't even know if he's alive. All of those things, I don't really know how I would have handled it myself. But I don't know, Claire agreed to stay and take care of the children, and these children who lost their parents, obviously, and were taken from their homes, and knowing that their parents probably aren't living because they saw how the Jews were being treated. All of those things, these children were desperate for love and care, and Claire just kind of refused to give it to the children right at first. And like, it took her a long time to open up and love them, and I get it because of her story and her past, things like that. I understand, but I was just kind of a little bit frustrated with her character at some point, but there was pretty good character development for Claire in the end. She did end up caring for the children more, but because of that, the story did kind of drag for me. But I really did like David, the American man in the story, the elements that he brought in loving the children, and also drawing out the good parts of Claire, I guess I could say. I don't know, I hope I'm explaining this well. I do remember just kind of feeling like the story was dragging a bit, but I loved it. I was enjoying it enough to keep going, and I loved all of the other characters. I just didn't really like Claire in the beginning as much, but I said there was good enough character development that I did end up liking her in the end, and just seeing her, you know, kind of grow and develop was interesting. And again, all of the literary references were so good. Overall, I rated it 4 stars. If you like The Secret Garden, which I have actually never read, and you like Beatrix Potter, all of those things, literary references, I think you would like the story and appreciate how those elements were brought in. And yeah, there's a lot of danger and intrigue with the Germans, and with the bombing of England, and I don't know, escaped German prisoners, things like that. So overall, really interesting book. But again, it took me a while to connect with the main character, but that could have been just a me problem, not necessarily the book problem. So the next book, nope, I did not read it on Kindle. I borrowed it from the library, but it has been returned already, so I don't have it anymore. But here we go. It is The Two Crosses by Elizabeth Musser. So I don't even really know how to say what this book is about because I didn't really enjoy it. I rated it 3 stars, but I honestly feel like maybe dropping it down to 2 because, uh-oh, sweetheart, sorry. Trying to film this when it's close to nap time is not a good idea. I just didn't enjoy this book. The writing style wasn't really for me. The story and the historical aspects of it, bringing out the history of the Huguenots and all of those things, was interesting. As a history lover, it was interesting to me to learn more about these things. And also the Algerian War for independence from France. I don't know that I ever really even heard about it. So having those elements in the book, in the story, was very interesting to learn about. But yeah, we follow Gabriella Madison. She grew up in Africa. I don't know if it was specifically Algeria, but she grew up in Africa with her missionary parents. But she goes to France to this abbey, I guess, turned school for women. You know what, I'm just gonna read the description because, yeah, I kind of forget half the things about this book because I didn't enjoy it. Alright, the glimmering Huguenot cross she innocently wears leads her deep into the shadows. When Gabriella Madison arrives in France in 1961 to continue her university studies, she doesn't anticipate being drawn into the secretive world behind the Algerian War for independence from France. The further she delves into the war efforts, the more her faith is challenged. The people who surround her bring a whirlwind of transforming forces: a wise nun involved in the smuggling, a little girl carrying secret information, and a man with unknown loyalties who captures her heart. When she discovers a long-hidden secret from her past, it all leads to questions about trust, faith in action, and the power of forgiveness to move beyond the pain of the past. So yeah, the synopsis itself was interesting to me, and so that's why I picked it up. I had actually found the book number 2 in the library book sale that was happening, and then I borrowed books 1 and 3. I don't know why they were just only selling the number 2. But I borrowed the first book so that I can read it, and then I can read my copy that I own now, book number 2. Bum, 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 bum. This man who captures her heart is one of the professors at this school. Overall, he kind of got on my nerves a lot, but he was kind of a two-faced character because in one sense he was the professor, but then he was also working within the Algerian War for independence on secret missions and things like that. And one of the redeeming factors about him, you do get to see his journey to faith and believing in God, but like for the most part he was an atheist, which was kind of annoying because Gabriella, I was like, hello, unequally yoked, don't get into a relationship with this man. And she knew it. It took a while for their relationship to actually form. One of the main things I didn't enjoy about the book was the writing style. There were so many point of views, and sometimes it would just switch so quickly into a little section that was sometimes just a paragraph long, and then other times it was much longer, of different point of views, and you didn't always know who the person was or what they were doing and how it was linked to everything else in the story. So it was kind of frustrating in that sense to jump back and forth. It got kind of confusing there for a bit. And the book was over 400 pages long. I just feel like it could have been condensed down. So with the war going on, there are mentions of people getting shot. Sometimes it can be a little bit descriptive, so take those trigger warnings into account. And then there's also mentions of rape and abuse and things like that. So there is that kind of content, but otherwise, basically, I'm not even a little bit interested in continuing the story. It kind of ended weird and like at a kind of a cliffhanger because you're not really sure where their relationship is going to go, what's going to happen to some of the other characters, things like that. But I honestly don't have any interest to pick up book number 2. So that's kind of disappointing. But yeah, if any of you have read this book, read the series, enjoyed it, let me know what your thoughts were on it and why you enjoyed it, and if it's worth continuing the series. All of the rest of the books are also very long, over 400 pages, and I'm just not interested, honestly. And you know what, that's okay. I tried out a new author. Maybe there are other books of hers that I would actually enjoy more than this one, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. So anyway, we're gonna move on. The next book that I finished was The Lost Heiress by Roseanna M. White. Or maybe it's Roseanna. Sorry if I am mispronouncing your name, but I loved this book very much. I was reading it in a recent vlog that I posted. I'll link it up here. But we follow Brooke, who has grown up in Monaco. Yeah, that's where she grew up. In the court of, I don't even remember which prince it was, which king. That's my bad for not remembering the specific historic time frame that this book is set in. But basically, she's grown up kind of as a princess, but then realizes that that's not actually her family, that she actually has family in England, and she is the lost daughter of a baron. So she's technically a baroness. So she travels to England to meet her family, and the story unfolds from there. And just kind of like the mystery of why she was taken from her family as a baby. Like, she knew that her birth mother had passed away when she was a baby, but she didn't know why. So there's a whole mystery element to that story here, and you do get to figure out what all happened. There's lots of dangerous things happening, so those parts were exciting. The romance in this book, I absolutely loved it so much. Justin is the main character, and he is in line to become a duke, but they had been friends ever since they were children, from him going to Monaco to visit and things like that. So childhood friends to lovers, there you go. I don't know, I really enjoyed this book. 4.5 stars is what I rated it, and I'm excited to read the rest of the series. This is my first book by this author, but I'm very interested and I want to read more of her books. Really enjoyed this one, and I do highly recommend. Then the next book that I finished was the final book in the Hawthorne House series by Kristi and Hunter. This one follows Griffith, who is the oldest son in the family, and he is also the Duke. So Griffith is, I would say, definitely the oldest child, but, you know, with the personality, type A personality of, you know, just being very logical, things like that. And so he kind of has this plan of how he's going to find a wife. Someone who would do well as in the role of being a duke's wife. But the Hawthorne family is notorious in London for only ever having marriages built on love, which you'd think that's what they all should be, but you know, not in that day. Most marriages were done for either political or monetary gain. But anyway, Griffith does want to continue that tradition. He does actually want to fall in love with the woman he's gonna marry, but he kind of has this plan of how it's gonna all work out, you know, with logic. We're gonna take a break. Baby girl is down for a nap, so we'll try to hurry get this done before she wakes up. Anyway, where was I? Griffith is wanting to go about falling in love with logic and making a plan. Well, as you can probably guess, it's not going to really work out. The woman that he chooses as his future wife and the woman he hopes to fall in love with is Frederica St. Clair, but she keeps resisting his advances, which he doesn't really know why right at first. But Frederica has a cousin, Isabella, who always happens to be wherever Frederica is, and so obviously Griffith keeps running into her, and she's very beautiful, and he obviously notices her, but he wants to ignore her because she's not the one who fits into his plan, you know? But that's why she's called an inconvenient beauty. So their story obviously unfolds, and he finds himself drawn to Isabella more and more. And I don't know, it was just it was a humorous story in the sense that I can relate to Griffith in the sense of wanting things to be orderly and planned out, following logic, things like that, and then realizing it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Just the whole story itself was just humorous to watch and follow, because Isabella also kind of has this deal with her uncle, who is not a very good man, by the way, to help save her family's farm. So she is kind of portrayed as this heiress, and that's going to come with a big dowry, so she has a lot of men who are pursuing her, and she goes along with it, kind of flirts with them, honestly, and leads them along because she made this deal with her uncle, and if she doesn't do that, then her family will probably lose their farm, all of these things. So she kind of just gets caught up in this own little mess that she agrees to, but she realizes that it was her trying to control things instead of letting God work things out, you know, things like that. But on the one side, Griffith is seeing her and noticing her and wanting to get to know her better because he gets along better with her than he does Frederica, and she's also kind of falling in love with him, but she can't agree to a relationship with him because of this deal that she made with her uncle. It's a whole thing, and it's very annoying. I had fun with the story. I really liked Griffith and Isabella, and it was a great ending to a great series, and I do highly recommend. I rated it 4 stars, and it was just all around a fun time. I also love the faith elements in this book and in the rest of the series as well. But anyway, there's that one. The final book that I finished in August, that I read in two to 3 days, stayed up till 1 o'clock Friday night to finish reading because I had to finish it and find out what it was, and also will probably go down as my favorite book of the year. And that is He Fell in Love with His Wife by E.P. Rowe. I loved this book so much. I just did a whole reading vlog featuring this book, only focused on reading this book. So I'm gonna try to not talk about it too much here because you guys can go watch that video. I go more into depth of why I liked it so much. But if you want just the brief, shortened version of it, James is a widower. His farm is failing, partially because he needs somebody to take care of his house, to like cook his meals, things like that, so he can focus on taking care of his farm, the animals, the crops, things like that. And his farm is basically failing, losing money. So he tries simply hiring women to come to his house and take care of things. And that's a whole thing. It doesn't work out. Mostly because the help that he gets, he doesn't have great options in his little town community. There's a lot of issues there, partially because he is a single man, and so he can't just bring one woman into his home to take care of things. He has to bring in 2 to, you know, so that it's appropriate for a woman to be living in his house while they're not married. But anyway, on the other side we have Alida, who finds herself in a little bit of a scandalous situation. Unbeknownst to her, she gets married to this man, or so she thinks. It is not a legal marriage, or even, it's not even a real marriage, even though they technically went in front of a minister and said their vows and things like that. But the man she thought she was married to was actually married already. and not a good guy again. And she finds out that he actually has a wife and a son, and she is just out on her own, and obviously deals with the scandal that comes with that. So she just wants a quiet place to go to where she doesn't have to talk to anybody, where she doesn't have to see anybody, where she doesn't have to continually be reminded of what happened to her. So when James meets her, he finds out her story, and he feels very sorry for her and decides that it would be a good idea for them to simply just get married in name only. They both see it as a business contract, although it would be a legally binding marriage because he didn't want to put Alita through that again. So it was a real marriage, but only in name and under the law. It was a legit marriage. So basically she would get his name, and that would put her in better standing in the community, and she would then take care of his house and his home, cook his meals, things like that, so that he could take care of his farm. It was just a whole business arrangement, and she loved the idea because it would get her away from town, from the gossips and everything. And their story goes from there, and I absolutely loved it so much. It's been a while since a book has made me giddy. In the sense, I giggled so much in the story. This book, for one thing, E.P. Rose's writing is hilarious, and like the situations that the characters get into, especially with the whole thing of James trying to find a woman to take care of his house, and the characters, the women that he chose, all of those scenarios was just hilarious. Like the first half of the book was more like a comedy with all of the scrapes that he got into with these women who he tried to hire. It's hilarious. But then the last half of the book with Alita, when she comes in and starts transforming his house into a home, and just watching them first become friends and then fall in love with each other, it was just the sweetest thing in the world. I absolutely loved it so much, and I'm so glad I picked this book up. And again, it's probably my favorite book of the year. I adored this book so much. I feel like pretty much anyone who picks up this book will love it, even if you're not much of a classic reader. I don't know, I found this book to be really easy to read. Obviously I read it in 3 days. I couldn't put it down, and it doesn't read like most other classics do. I thought so anyway. I could be wrong, I don't know. But again, loved this book. Highly recommend, and I would love to see more people pick it up and read it so we can talk about it, because more people need to know about this book. But anyway, I said I'm not going to talk long about this book, and here I am, so my apologies. But those are the books that I read in August. Let me know if you have read any of these, or if you're interested in reading any of these, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.